Dive into the dynamic world of entrepreneurship, innovation, and business with CapLander, hosted by Jody and Morgan of J. Consulting. Whether you're invested in the private capital markets, building your own venture, or curious about the entrepreneurial spirit, this podcast unpacks the latest trends, insights, and opportunities shaping today's market and the people driving what's next. CapLander connects the dots between personal and professional life because how you do anything is how you do everything. Featuring expert guests, deep discussions, and a dynamic mother-daughter duo, CapLander is your go-to resource for staying informed and inspired. Hi, Jody.
Hi, Morgan. The Tuesday after Memorial Day, I kind of feel like I don't know what day it is because this week seems already like very tapped down, right?
Yeah, it's not. Memorial Day came very early this year, and school subsequently also got out early this year because they're not going to have kids go back to class after the long weekend. Like, they're not going to have kids come back from a day and a half. So It's really like everything kind of feels like it got moved up.
Yeah. Well, the truth of it is that we have a lot of work, and I don't know about you, but I'm definitely, I wouldn't say feeling pressure with all of this AI, but I feel like there's quite a bit for us to tackle. And I mean, okay. Let's back up a minute. So we've been watching TV. I'm up in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So we watched Hacks last night.
Right.
And AI is all part of this as well. Like whether, they had a mock of the guy who's a VC dealing with Deborah Vance, who's the star of Hacks. And to show like what it would be if they took her commentary and her sort of comedic act and, help people write their speeches for when people are getting married and other events. And then the writer was like, no, I'm not participating in this because the whole creative process and how you get to something matters. And so everyone's feeling pressure, though, I think, is the net. And they're showing this. Even we saw The Devil Wears Prada 2 over the weekend, and everyone's incorporating it somewhere in their mindset. Like, how far is this going to go?
I mean, I see it as like a divide where there's going to be companies where it's only AI. Like, there's not going to be somebody who you talk to. Like, there's going to be chatbots and tools or whatever, or a platform or whatever it is like that you use. And then I think there's going to be the other way where you don't want that, but the people behind the scenes might be using it to make their jobs easier, but you're dealing with the person and you are
So what are
dealing
we
with
going to
something.
do? What's happening at CapLander?
I mean, we are doing a little bit of both, truthfully. I mean, we have an AI
You
comp
have to do
consultant.
something. If you don't show some AI somewhere, you look like loser camp where you are stuck. Which could possibly happen if I were alone, not loser camp, but it would be definitely with you, it's easier. You have a younger perspective.
Right. I mean, we have an AI tool that's coming out on our platform, and it's our own LLM. So we're only training it on our data, which is the most important point because we have a
Right. Well, that's the
proprietary
key.
data set. Right. But with that, I was even texting our, I guess, like lead engineer over the weekend because he was testing things and he's like, it makes shit up. Like, that's the thing, is like you have to
This is
put
the
all these.
issue.
Right, and he's like, "I'm looking at these things and I'm like," and he's like, it's not accurate." And you basically have to tell it, like, don't make things up. And there are things when I use,
Is that crazy? You have to
Claude.
say to it, don't make things up. I mean, this is the part. This is the
Right, you have
part.
to say, "Don't make assumptions," like, only go off, like, you can only make, like, I'm asking you to learn what I'm giving you, not to fill in the gaps.
It's like
And that's
parenting. This is like dealing with a bad bitch. This is like dealing with someone who cannot behave.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't know the parenting piece of it yet. I only know it from the child
Whatever, you've had
perspective.
friends, you
Yeah,
had breakups with a friend. It's the same thing where they make
yeah.
assumptions and they, carry the ball down the field. You're like, wrong direction.
Well, I mean, this is kind of the thing, like talking about TV, right? So I'm watching right now
What are you
Margot's Got
watching?
Money. I'm watching Margot's Got Money
Love,
Problems on Apple TV,
love.
which is great. And I mean, Elle Fanning, she has a lot of points to it. I think like the whole situation, like there's a lot of nuances, but
Margot's Got Money Problems is one, and I'm watching John Hamm and Friends and Neighbors. I'm on season
Oh my
2.
God. Is that Crazy Town? Did you watch the most recent one?
No, so don't spoil it for me. I'm not
But it
caught
just
up on
shows
it.
you, apropos to what we're talking about, how once you get off track, like the AI, how far afield you can continue to go. And once you're really immersed in a dynamic that's not healthy, it's very easy to perpetuate that. Like it's once you go down that rabbit hole, it is hard to get yourself out. And I think in
John Hamm does
general,
not feel like he's off the track. Like, he's basically
not
like, "Yeah,
yet.
my
We haven't
life."
watched the most recent one
Right,
because I think he
right.
does feel he's off track, and I feel like he feels like his family is off track. And this is the problem
Yeah.
because and it's the same thing in the Margot's Got Money Problems. The only person that you can blame when you get this far down is yourself, because if you hadn't started it, then your other people may not be involved in this way. But in the both
Yeah.
cases, John Hamm and the Margot's Got Money Problems, she made choices that had consequences, and she didn't like the consequences.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's the whole thing. A lot of this comes back to the choices that you make and then the paths and then the road that takes you down. And sometimes a lot of it is that you don't have the hindsight of it to see what's happening along the way. And of course,
This
when you're
is like
sitting.
this goes back to the parenting, and then we can switch subjects. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. It's so simple. Actions, consequences. I don't know, why is that so hard?
Because the reality is, like, you don't have not everybody has the foresight to it, but at the end of the day, like, some people are just willing to risk it, and I think that is part about it for the fine line, like, when you look at people who actually are making decisions, at a certain point, they're like, "Fuck it. Why
No,
not?"
I don't think I totally disagree. I don't
Okay.
think they're making decisions and they're willing to risk it. I think they're making decisions and they have no optics, they have no maturity, they have no depth perspective on what the consequences could be, and they're not thinking it through. And I tell you this because I've been the kind of person who has sort of thrown the baby out with the bathwater or set fire without thinking about, win the battle, lose the war, and I don't do that anymore. I mean, I try not to anyhow, because I know that in the moment that may feel great, but that the fallout from that is going to be a multiple of what I did, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, but you also have more wisdom. That's part of
Well,
it.
I'm
That's part of
60.
what you get right, that's part of what you get with age. You're looking at
Well,
people who
I'm
are such.
ideally,
Right, I
yeah,
mean, ideally, right? Ideally, you learn from your mistakes on it, or you learn from past experiences where you did throw the baby out with the bathwater, and you look back on it and you have hindsight to say like, "Ah, I could have
yeah,
done that differently." And that's really where people either frankly evolve or they don't, because you
yeah.
either are able to do that or you're not. And that's like the same thing with business and AI. Like, you're either willing to evolve and look at something and think about, okay, this makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but I need to keep my business
Good.
moving forward.
Uncomfortable means that's right. Something
Right,
good
uncomfortable
is
is the
going to come
change
from it.
piece. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that's really where it all kinda ties together, but the reality is, like, when you do watch things on TV and then you see and then, like, you look at your own life, like, there is a lot of synergy because especially, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he wrote Modern Family, and he did my commencement speech. It's Wisconsin, right? And
Mhm.
he really talked about them when Modern Family was so successful, it was because he wrote it based on his real
It
life.
was relatable. People could relate to it.
Right, and
When
that's part of
he
it.
said his one thing was with his daughter who said, when she went to work with him and they were in like the writer's room and she
Right.
came home and told her mother, "It's a wonder we have a roof over our head."
Totally, like this shit over here. So,
Right.
well, okay, so it's Memorial Day, and I think the last piece of it, especially before we get into our episode for today, is that we talk about this a lot behind the scenes because obviously, separate of you being my boss, you are my mother. But you have a relationship, I have a relationship. I have a wedding anniversary coming up this week, and I was really thinking about how somebody asked me,
Was
I've
it
been
few
married
years?
3 years.
Oh my God. Where does
Yeah,
the time go,
yeah.
honestly?
No, and I remember really getting ready to get married, and you're so focused on the day of and, like, the wedding itself, and you know that it's really I was, one of the areas in which, like, I really understood that the wedding was the beginning of the marriage, and, like, it was just one day, so I was not as wrapped up in the whole, like, bridal piece of it as,
Right, because true to our conversation, you had perspective because you knew, especially coming from a divorced household, and then your
Yeah.
grandparents who are now married 66 years, you've seen both sides of it, and you were consciously deciding what you wanted for yourself.
Right. And so there's a lot of pieces of it now we're looking at. I'm like, okay, A, like you never know what it's going to be like, and every marriage is different. But it really, have had friends now who have gotten married, but who have also gotten divorced because they thought things were going to be different or things came out
Right.
about their
We
spouse
had a
that they didn't
conversation with the
know.
CEO the other day who said the
Right.
problems that were there in the beginning that she thought were going to get better really just perpetuated to the point where it was not sustainable.
No, it's completely true. I mean, I've known my husband.
Guilty.
I met
So guilty.
you really are
The
guilty of
worst.
this.
I come
I mean,
in so optimistic.
no, I swung really hard from you in the other direction because I'm very realistic on the other hand. And I also met my husband when he was 18, when we were both 18. So, and I knew him as a friend. So really with him, I'm like, in my mind, sometimes I look at him and I'm like, you're just the 31-year-old version of this, but like the core of who you
No,
are.
he's matured so much.
Yes.
He's
But like
matured.
that,
He and I are like in lockstep.
it is kind of crazy, honestly. They say that you marry your unfinished business, and I do joke, I'm like, "You are really like my mother, and I can be really like his father." So I'm like, "Maybe this is our
Well, we had
balance
2 funny
between the
stories
2."
this weekend. One, when you and your husband were having a conversation and you were like, "Well, would you consider something?" And your husband said, "No." And then you said, "Is that sort of closed-minded?" And he said to you, "Well, ask your mother. And if your mother says the opposite, I'll go with what she says."
I'll con
And you called me and you
then
asked,
he
"Would
was
you
like,
cons?"
yeah, he was like, "I'll reconsider. If you call your mom and she has a different answer than me, then I will reconsider my stance on this."
Right. So you called me and you asked me the question, and I said, before you even got the full words out of your mouth, no. To which your husband, who was in the car with you, laughed his ass off, saying, "See," and I will argue with you that that is like the best thing ever. The fact that your husband and I are aligned and on the same page. And then we had one other funny story, which just shows you like sort of the relevant to the fact that people don't change, that we did the podcast and we're talking to the Al, who's the CEO of Get Dynasty, and he was telling his wife about us and working with us. And lo and behold, she remembered me from a daily method class in Corte Madera. And she said that I was a little bit of a scary spice because I had really asked her to make the class a little harder. Like in some respects, I said to her, "You're not getting your job done." And in a crazy way, she remembers it because there was an ounce of truth to it and it scared her a little bit. And so go ahead.
I think the word that he used was that you hazed her lightly. You were that you hazed her, which is true. You
Yeah,
are
I
like,
am a little bit of a gangster. There's no question.
no,
I mean, I
honestly,
have a
like,
little bit of a
if
gangster mentality,
when I
which
go
is
to
why I'm not having a third anniversary. I'm not having any anniversaries because
no
I am
wedding
not,
anniversary.
no wedding anniversaries. I am not a suitable person to, I mean, I'm up here playing house with my friend Robert, but that's about as far as cohabitation goes because I'm not a suitable person to be a partner that way anymore. I've outgrown that.
Look, it is a choice, it is, and I look at my grandparents, your parents who've been married for 66 years, and it's a lot of like, my grandfather always says, he's like, "You can't take it too seriously." Like, you
Yeah.
just have to kinda keep going, and I think there's a lot of things with that over the weekend, we have a pizza oven. That was a wedding gift, right? So, my husband's out there making pizza, and it's a whole thing, like, it's a whole thing, and I really like a clean kitchen, so our solution and
Where'd you
really
get that from?
Oh, I don't know. I think my mother's a little OCD, but we have a table that sits outside where like you can prep all the pizza ingredients and everything else. And that's a win-win for us because I don't give a shit if there's flour on the ground outside. But
Right.
like
As
if
long as
there's
it's
stuff out,
outside.
I don't care. Honestly, outside is the best place for this to be. And there
Right.
was something where I was getting really uptight about something beforehand. And he basically looks at me and he's like, maybe you want to go get on the Peloton bike for like 20, 30 minutes. And I was thinking to myself, you motherfucker, what nerve do you have to tell me to go get on the Peloton bike? And he's like, you just seem like you have like a little bit of like some extra energy that
Yep.
like you could put into a different area. And I was
Robert
sitting there,
suggested yesterday that I go have because he's not as much of a drinker. And I, of course, love a cocktail. And sometimes I like two cocktails. And so he suggested yesterday, when I was a little snippy with him over something, that I might go get myself a hard cider.
Right. And I looked at Ryan, then I was like, on one hand, I was like, I'm actually so impressed because he was 100% right. I was like, I did need to
Right.
just get out of the kitchen and I did get down on the bike. But instead of being like, oh, how dare you? I was like kind of flattered
No.
that I was like, you do know me well enough where like your
Yeah.
suggestion is actually exactly what you're saying for hazing this instructor is that when
She
somebody
knew.
says something,
That's why
right,
she thought fondly of it, because she was like, "Damn it, she's right. Like, I'm not focused. I'm not paying
right,
attention." So there
right.
is always
And
likely a little truth in what most people say in terms of either strong suggestions or gentle hazing or whatever you want to call it. Mm.
I love that you're called gentle hazing. Like you
I
like
mean,
that,
it
like
wasn't
there
like
is
fraternity
something.
style, where I tied her to a stake post, but I'm sure I was
Oh
thinking
my
that in my
gosh.
mind at the time.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to lead into somebody whose CEO style is actually probably quite the opposite of yours.
Yeah.
So, Susan Griffin-Black is the co founder and co CEO of EO Products, which is a renowned natural certified B Corp personal care brand based in Marin County, California. It was launched in 1995, and the company, whose name stands for Essential Oils, is widely celebrated for its clean beauty and aromatherapy focused products. Hello, and welcome to the CapLander podcast, Susan.
So good to see both of you
Are you coming to us live from Mill Valley, or where are you?
live from Mill Valley, your old hood.
I know. I have to, and Morgan, you too, really.
I mean, considering I was raised there, yes, definitely my old hood, my hometown, even more than that.
Yes.
I would love to just jump in, but I know
Sure.
that because I know you so well, but maybe Morgan, you can back up the truck a little bit, because I forget that not everybody has had the pleasure of knowing you, which is so fun, through hiking and having kids at somewhat the same ages and living in Mill Valley for all those years. So I know you on a personal level as well, but from the business side, you have had this wild success that maybe wasn't always so easy all the time, and really were ahead of your time with these natural products and a business that maybe Morgan, you want to start with.
Definitely. Well, I know you through my mother, but I also know you because I am an EO product lover and connoisseur, which frankly, I did not necessarily put the two together that it was your company until we spoke on our prep call a couple of weeks ago. But for somebody who does not know you, but has your products and sees your products in Whole Foods and grocery stores and Target and Walmart, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yes. But first, let me just thank you because, of course, without our customers and community, we wouldn't be here. It's our 31st year, and we're EO Products. We manufacture everything in San Rafael, a little bit north of here. And we've been around since 1995. We have two brands, EO, which is our original aromatherapy inspired brand that is a little bit pricier and more sophisticated. And then we created Everyone for Everybody in 2012. And that is really for families, it's for everyone. We wanted to
Right.
make a better product that was affordable and accessible and use sort of lower priced essential oils, but no synthetics, and that's in, Amazon and Whole Foods and all the natural food stores in the country.
I just joked because I was at Whole Foods yesterday buying groceries and I restocked the Cedar 3-in-1 product for my husband. And it's funny because he really is the perfect person for the everyone product versus I like the high end piece of it, but I
I
joke,
wonder
I'm like,
how
this,
that happened, that you like the high
I
end
know,
product.
but I do joke, I'm
Oh,
like,
no.
this really
I don't know how
No
that would
idea.
happen with you being my daughter.
I do joke with him. I'm like, "These are made for you because it is like you could put on your face, you could put on your body, you could put on your hair, you could put it wherever you want." Like, and he's basically looking at something that's more like what you're saying, the higher end line where it's like, okay, this is for your hands, and this one's for your body, and this one's designed for all these different
Right, because
areas.
different textures, moisturizing, do you
Yes.
leave it on? Do you rinse it off, right? And
Yes.
so, this happened because my son was in a band with 5 other guys at the time. They were the transfer, then they were the 2 a.m. club, and
Yep.
I went into the bathroom to clean up all the towels because they would stay with me if they were doing anything locally. And I looked at all these products and they were just horrible from my point of view in terms of ingredients and synthetic fragrance. And I had to like call an immediate focus group. And they were like, "Ma mère, EO's too expensive and too many different kind of products." And so it really came out of just seeing the
What you
need.
saw,
Yeah, to
right.
do
You
something
saw
that
it
was,
firsthand.
yeah, was
Yeah.
a little
This is what
bit
I love
more
about you, both
accessible.
as a mom as well as a partner and businesswoman, is that, we always have this mantra here at Thielander is how you do anything is how you do everything. And that's absolutely applies to you because you've always had this beautiful, refined aesthetic, but also very low key in a subtle way. And let's couch this for those people that are listening. So you're based in Marin County, California, which is just over the Golden Gate Bridge. And Mill Valley is by far has become, I mean, when we first moved there, it was a little more hippy dippy. And now it's become a very, I think
Bougie.
bougie. Yeah, that's the word I was
Yes.
going to use. It's
Yeah.
become a very bougie neighborhood because of its proximity to Mount Tam and the outdoors, as well as San Francisco and the unbelievable views. And then your products are made in San Rafael, which is a few towns up north, still in Marin County. So you really still are running a very local business, but your reach is global. I mean, I've seen your products all across the world. So how did that happen? And how did you go from a focus group, when going from EO to then the everyday, all the other products and these distribution channels in these names that everybody knows?
Well, it was really one day at a time for 31 years so far, knock on wood, right? Um, we had the privilege and the good timing of starting with Whole Foods when they had 40 stores. So, it was real. And at that time, it was sort of one store at a time you had to sell into, and then all the good earths of the world. And, but the thing that was so great about it is the natural products community was pretty much, in its very early childhood phase. And so we were a part of the emerging and evolving community. And we were very close to how food was grown. And so our standards really came from agriculture and came from like the real deal. And so essential oils was a very natural sort of parallel path and all of the same standards. So we worked very hard to create all the natural standards, the organic standards, CCOF, and the USDA, and all of that within Whole Foods for our company, along with working with all the other companies at the time to
Right.
really get, a solid understanding of how we do what we do.
What was it about the essential oils that called to you? Because that really seems from the outside looking in as the real differentiator between you and other body products.
It's really true. I'm a product person, but I didn't really know the fragrance business. I was a clothing designer and merchandiser before this, but always really interested in all upcoming, products and trends. And the thing is the way that they smell, which is so akin to flowers and nature. And so just physiologically, biologically, they're really part of us. That whole world is part of us, like grapes and wine. Like it really
Right.
ends up being a very agricultural, regenerative agricultural, wildcrafted, organic. So it's farm based, and that was a world that we were definitely part of and into cultivating and understanding how
Right.
you grow and distill, right?
I had never thought about it. We had a neighbor, and this really shows why and how your business has been so successful, especially with the Marin County lens on it. We had a neighbor who said that your skin is your biggest organ. And so it's really important what you put on your skin because it's not just it is the outer layer, but it also is a part of your body and you need to take care of it. And when she said that, I remember I was swimming in high school at the time and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do a better job of this because like, especially being in chlorine and everything else, and you kind of
Yes.
slap on whatever lotion, all of a sudden you're like, this is not going to cut it anymore. So you talk a lot about the agriculture. So do you grow all of these scents yourself? Is that a part of your manufacturing process, or do you source directly from somebody else?
We source directly from growers or go through distributors. And this has been an evolving network over the many years. Brad, my co-CEO and business partner, is constantly traveling the globe. We're very involved in IFIAT, which is the global essential oil business. So and new things are happening all the time, especially
Yeah.
with climate change and conditions globally and weather, like wine, like anything that's agricultural. So it's been a process of development, and also where things natively grew the best. And you have a lot of fourth, fifth, sixth generation families across. So when you think of it and you think of the Silk Road, you think of spices, and you think like wars could be going on, all sorts of weather conditions. And for thousands of years, people have been growing and distilling lavender in the south of France. And then recently Bulgaria, or, rose petals, which, it takes an incredible amount of rose petals for one drop, are grown we get it from Morocco, or, we also get some rose from Bulgaria. So, it
I want
just
to
is.
interject for a second because you mentioned something that's really a very big point of all of this. You mentioned your business partner. So why don't you fill us in a little bit on that? Because you've had different relationships with your business partner.
I have.
Tell
Yes.
us, Susan.
We were together. We got married in 95 and divorced in 2007. And we have run the company and co-parented for the whole time. Still do. Still, everybody's welcome and included with other relationships that we may or may not have for the holidays. We have really transformed our relationship into something really beautiful and caring and family. And that's been so good for so many, you know?
Well, and you still you all have the same last name because the Susan Griffin-Black is the black part is your ex-husband's
Yes, Brad
name.
Black. Yes.
Yeah. So that's pretty phenomenal, I have to say. So it like apropos to Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop, you consciously uncoupled, but you manage with the business, which is from what we read and see in social media and just in media in general, that can really go a lot of different ways and can tear apart a business. I remember this with Esprit. Remember back in
I worked for Doug and I worked for Susie. I was there in 1990 till 1991. And it was a very incredible experience because Doug hired me, and then I ended up working for Susie, who's been tremendously supportive over these many years, and we still are in touch, which
sure.
I have such like deep respect and admiration for
You know,
everything
that
that she's
divorce
doing.
didn't land very well for that business. So you have done an amazing job. And now your son works for the business as well, right?
Yes, Mark is doing brand and content. He's the branded content manager, and our daughter Lucy is a multimedia artist, and she is working more and more creatively and direct as an art director, really. So
Interesting.
it's really something I never thought would happen, but I'm really glad that it's happening.
How big is the organization now? I mean, if it started from in your kitchen, in Mill Valley and
Mhm.
Marin, and how big is the organization now?
Well, we have 121 employees, and we run one shift now, but at a certain point we'll go back to two, like, COVID disrupted quite a few things. So, but after 5 years, sort of post COVID, of right sizing and becoming profitable again and getting product back on the shelf, we're about to go into a much more creative and innovative growth mode.
That was my next question is, so you have a name brand recognition. People know EO products, but obviously in 31 years of business, my mom started her company 29 years ago. And from being the daughter point of view, you know that there are ups and downs. I think for any successful business, it's a name of the game. Like nothing's ever straightforward.
Ever.
So,
Right.
right. So
Where
what
would the
have
fun be
been
in that if you could just count on everything?
No, of course.
right?
We like those problems. We
Exactly.
like
That's
that
why we have
challenge.
wrinkles. We have something to show for the fact that we have survived and thrived, but we got here somehow. So
Yes.
So how did
And
you
wisdom. And wisdom.
Yes, right? That's really the piece of it. So with your wisdom of these ups and downs, what can you share for how you got through them, or if you're able to share details of what some of them have been and how you've come out on the other side, especially being an entrepreneur and a co-CEO and a founder?
Well, I think I'll just talk about the most recent one because it was the most difficult, and that was COVID and after COVID. So COVID, we saw just incredible, of course, need for hand sanitizer. We
that's
became
what I
an
was thinking. The hand sanitizer business.
and hand soap and hand wipes, an essential business. So Jared Huffman, gave us the letter right away, and we started making products for Kaiser and UCSF and everybody local who needed hand sanitizer. So that was like the first order of business. And then it was just it's sort of an entrepreneurial dream in a weird way, not a weird way, in a straightforward way, in that all of a sudden it must be like the 15 minutes of fame sort of thing, right? Everyone wants what you have. And rarely do we get to experience that. I had a little blip of that. We had a little blip of that during H1N1 with EO. In 2008, I thought, okay, we're just going to go to a shortened work week and we'll all just take Fridays off for the next foreseeable future till business comes back. Got a fax and it was a fax from like drugstore.com, and it had an extra zero on it. And I was like, this can't be right, you know? And, instead of $10,000, it was $100,000 worth of hand sanitizer. This was like, you'd get a $10 million order from Amazon on a Monday because we get Amazon orders. And you just knew that if we could
Something was happening.
right.
Something big
It's
is
like,
happening.
yeah, it's like, how much could we really ship going all out there immediately? And how do you get that supply chain synced with everything? And then how do we monitor it and not take too many products off the shelf and just give everything to the sanitizer, soap, and hand wipe business until there is less of a crisis situation? So on one hand, it was like sort of dream like to have more than you could ever make. And then trying to, it was like an incredible challenge.
Well, everyone was sitting home and COVID locked in. You were like guns a-blazing going, okay, holy shit.
Yeah. How are we going to do this with sanity and also the sort of extra pressure because we didn't know so much, especially at the beginning, what sort of a crisis is it? How long will it last?
And in California and Northern California, I think we were like the first to go down and the last to come up. I mean, that's part of how I moved to Miami is for you, it was a good time, but for me, it was like, there's no way I'm going to continue to live in this environment. And so the Bay Area was probably took one of the hardest hits and the earliest for the longest.
Yes. So I was on my way to a trade show down south, and the trade show got canceled. This is our annual big, natural products expo in Anaheim. I was driving, trade show got canceled. I thought, it sounds like everyone's just overreacting. Went to, Palm Springs, went to Taos. My sister called me. Her former husband and also our family is an ER doc, formerly an ER doc. He's like, Tell everybody to come home now."
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and my daughter was in college in Paris.
Yeah.
And so that was very different and very strict. And she wanted to finish school. And so it was sort of just like surreal. I came home and we had a little store around the corner for like 7 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that store still there or no?
No, we ended up closing because the lease was up and COVID was happening. And
Yeah.
Right. So
but
you're like,
there was
why
a
not?
line around the block. I also live very close to Sweetwater Music Hall, right? And sometimes Bobby Weir and members of the Grateful Dead would play, and that the ticket line was always around the corner. They were lined up for hand sanitizer around the block as if
Like, my
the
Lord.
Dead were playing, right?
Right.
So I was so shocked by the severity of this, but it was the vibe of people really thinking that this would be helpful. So we just brought as much and just started handing out
Just like
sanitizer, but
it was like gangbusters.
but
And
there was
it really is that moment where you want to capitalize on it, and especially when you're selling a product, you're like, "This is the beginning." Like, if this is the entry point, is the hand sanitizer, then somebody else is gonna want shampoo, or somebody else is going to want a body lotion, or somebody is gonna get hand soap, and then they're gonna want the moisturizer that comes with it. So, I can see what you're saying where you have this incredible opportunity, but then from a manufacturing standpoint and a production facility that's X amount of square feet, you can only shift so many lines to accommodate putting more of one product out there.
So what
yes.
do you do with all of this? Now that you have a business, you're sort of through like you've been through all these crises. You've got kids that have been grown. You've got a nice relationship with your ex-husband. You now have a grandchild. Are you still working like 24/7? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not 24/7, but I really feel very engaged in a different way in terms of mentoring and teaching and listening and learning and the whole AI sort of where it begins and ends with us and building business intelligence, in a very substantial way into product development and into what we're doing. Back in the day, I would wake up in the morning and be like, "Oh, coconut and lemon. And I think that's a really good idea. Let's make some of that." Now it's like, you know, it's
How does
okay,
that
Claude, tell me about, and it just is
right.
very different and will
See
become
that
predictive.
We've seen that too, right? I mean, because there's two pieces of it. One is obviously we're a data company and we have a proprietary data set. So it's a fine line because you don't want to give that to an open AI or a Claude because then you lose the proprietary piece of it. And then on the other hand, it does make your life easier and more efficient. And so from your side of it, especially I would think on the customer service side and the relationship piece of it, like Jody's in North Carolina and I was there last week and we saw a billboard for the general store and it explicitly said no self-checkouts
Right.
and like no AI, like human to human. Like we're here to help serve you. And there's a lot of what you talk about with your business that makes me think of that where how are you using AI and where are you seeing it come into your day-to-day business?
It's such a good question. And in my experimentation versus my kids, and you're sort of an expert, and then I'm very curious what you both comment and think about this. I think it's an incredible tool. And, we'll develop our own bot and figure out the security and the, sort of firewalls around what we say and how we say to what mechanism. And then, you know, having the twin bot sort of, to reflect our customer base, but not having it be archetyped, having it be really based on. So all of that based on our real customers, right,
Right.
is in play. But the discretionary part of it I look at it and I think, but maybe that prompt wasn't so good. And,
Yeah.
this answer, you could get tricked that this answer is right, but what about this, and this? And you kind of get deep, right? My son could look at it and say, like, Oh my God. Like it was the supreme
Right.
truth.
Yeah.
Right. I read this a lot. You have to still be the first consistently what I've seen is that you have to be critical of the first answer you get. You can't just take the first answer and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is the silver platter of what I needed and it was just delivered to me by
Right.
Anthropic." Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's you need to
Yeah.
look at it and
People
use
like
your
Susan
brain
and
and
I are
think
like, that's
like,
bullshit. We look at it and think, who is this person anyhow? This is not a person. This is a bot. This is technology, which is good at point you in the right direction and might open up your eyes to something. But in no way, shape, or form, after we've built businesses based on something that we've been passionate about, are we taking that as the holy grail?
No, and you still have your intuition.
Right.
I mean, that's wisdom, that's experience, that's the thing that has really guided us to experiment, be successful, be not successful, but we're still
Yeah.
here, So that takes it out of the equation.
Well, I
If
also
you
say
don't
that
have
we
the
must have done
experience,
something right because we have children who are working with us and living near us. So I don't give a shit what anyone says about, wisdom and experience and we're antiquated in some way. Fine by me. Some old school, this is like what Morgan's saying, the Mass General Store saying no self checkouts. And we talk about we're bringing surveys back because all of this payroll plug-in and all these shortcuts are great for certain things, but there's a quality control that doesn't get incorporated always. And that's where you smelling and touching and tasting and knowing.
yeah, there's no replacement for that. And if there ever is, then there will be, but not in our
not
lifetime.
now.
And
Right.
and people are, I mean, we also have the perspective of being around before the internet. So, and selling things, without the internet. And so that is a very valuable experience and perspective in some ways. We embraced it. We were open. We were curious. I mean, we're lifelong learners. So it's not like that. And I'm not, afraid. It's just based on my own experience and based on our own experience, it has to make sense.
Makes sense. Yeah,
It has to be
exactly.
believable and
I have a couple of questions as we move towards the wind up here. When you travel, are you a carry-on person or do you pack luggage and check in?
carry on.
Okay. And are you more of like a black backdrop if you switch to brown is the new black and accessorize, or what's your strategy for that?
Black and white and brown. Yeah,
Yeah.
brown can be the new black, but black is
Sneakers, or
good.
are you wearing like proper shoes?
Am I wearing proper shoes?
Like when you go on a business trip, you bringing boots and like nice shoes, or have you just
Yeah,
completely
what's your
switched
work
to this?
wardrobe?
Yeah, use some sneaker game, or what are you doing when you're
Oh,
schlepping
yeah,
around
I'm
these
not a
cities?
heel person, so never that. I'm a black boot person till the end. Very
Right.
discerning and committed.
Any brand in particular? Like, if you had to, like, if your house is on fire and you have to get your favorite boots, what are you
Yeah,
grabbing?
that's kind of a hard question. Not that hard. Um, there's like, Fiorentini Baker, there's
Yep, classic.
Officine Creative, it's just all the ones that are just I found over the years that are just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do
Well, also
you
they get better the more you wear them too, and especially for
Yes.
a black boot, they do get better with time.
Yes, and I am looking forward to the day where we're shopping on AI, whatever it's called, and saying, I want a pair of black boots and I want them to be leather and I want them to be this shape, toe, and like Ferrantini and like this. Show me everything.
Right.
That'll
yeah.
be
Yeah,
fun.
where you can describe it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question since we know Morgan is 30 some odd weeks pregnant, and I know that you are a little bit downstream from me and that you have the pleasure of a grandchild. So,
The
wisdom
best
to
thing.
Morgan as a working mom and wisdom to me as a soon to be grandmother.
What was your relationship with your grandma? Did you have a
She's
good
here.
grandma?
I'm in her house. She's 86 years old, and so is my dad, and they've been married for 66 years. And Morgan talks to my mother every single day, at least once.
Right.
We joke, we think that it skipped a generation because Jody has more personality traits of my grandmother's mom, who is like a total force to be reckoned with. And then I am much more like my grandmother than my mother is. So we're kind of joking. We're like, okay, what? And I'm having a girl. So part of us is like, is she going to be, is she going to come out like Jody or
Yeah.
is she going to come out like personality wise?
Yeah. But yes, to answer your question, Morgan has a wonderful relationship with her grandmother.
Yes.
Right. So I had the best relationship with my grandma too. And when Gloria was born, I was like, I am just going to, like, I'm so all in.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's it's such an important relationship because, you're relaxed. You're not a parent, but you're really like the love and joy aspect of it. I just couldn't really comprehend.
Yeah.
It's different,
And how about as you were a working mom and you obviously had challenges in your personal life and you had to figure out how to do that, what's your advice for Morgan and other women who are career oriented and capable and successful, and then also will have the next role of being a mom?
Yeah, you just prioritize your life so that your kids and your family are the most important at the critical moments, especially. There's no question about that. And you never work for a place that would put that into question, which is why I'm so glad
Yeah.
you're working as you are, because every human needs to understand that, a sick kid, a kid who needs care, whatever, everything else, is nothing is as important as caring for that person.
Right.
And and then you just get the help that you need. That's the right support. And, it really takes a village and you have one. So I'm very happy about that.
See, Morgan, I told
Yeah.
you the help you need. Do you hear Susan talk right now? I've told you
Jody
this.
and I Jody and I got into a whole I mean, I kid you not, like, we don't really argue at this point anymore, like, we have, like, disagreements in the sense for, like, if somebody says something or whatever, but, like, we're kinda past any point of, like, a knockout, drag out fight, and Jody is having a baby shower for me in St. Louis in a couple of weeks,
Mhm.
and the night before the baby shower, we're having dinner at my house. And part of the conversation was at that point, I will be very, very, very pregnant. And she's like, you need to hire help. Like, you need somebody to like bartend and put dishes away and like clear plates. And you would have thought that us disagreeing about whether it's
Morgan said
2
she didn't
people
want
or
the
3
help. And
people.
now it's become a common theme of what you just said. I said, Morgan, help is going to be part of your life because you want help to free you up so that the time that you have to spend with your daughter is quality time and you are not dog ass tired because you are emptying your dishwasher or doing your
Yes.
laundry or changing your sheets or doing things that you can outsource. And it only becomes
Yeah.
more critical that you have to really pivot as your kids get older. And I think it's a good way to wind up because it's about the whole career anyhow. We have to learn to pivot and pivot as needed. And we may get sucker punched really hard and fast in a way you were not thinking. And that is the creative edge of being an entrepreneur and innovative. And I think you are like the living, breathing, identity of all of that, Susan.
Well, right back to you, Jody. And it's a process, it's a lifelong journey. And it's fraught with challenge and joy and rigor, and just sort of going with accepting reality as it is as quickly as you can so that you can get to the other side that you
That
need
should
to
be your
get to.
next line of products, Susan. Have you thought about a baby line of products?
We have, yes, possible.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll wind up on that note because that's with an eye towards the future on all fronts. And I just love
Yes.
you to death. And I'm so glad you were with us. Thank you, really.
Thank you so much for having me. I love you, and I'm so just thinking about
Yeah.
this little baby and how welcome and loved and beautiful that's all
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be.
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding. Thank you for joining us today for the CapLander podcast. If you loved this episode, share it and make sure to subscribe to CapLander for more conversations like this.